Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TMC Water Cooler Podcast. With me this week, we have the always co-host Ubastij, aka Hendrick, and we also have infamous CFC shitposter and moderator Powers. So let's get right to it. What have you guys?
And he's also a notorious, terribly bad person for leaking Skype logs and Jabber logs and all that stuff. So. You did. You've done that at least once, and we called you out on it. And
Peg's just mad because I told him not to shitpost the other day.
No shitposting allowed. So anyway, what games have you guys been playing recently? Since that's what we always start out with.
I have been playing PlanetSide 2, a little tiny bit of Eve. I finally got through South Park Stick of Truth.
How'd you like that? Because that was probably one of my more favorite games this year.
I really liked it because it was just like, it was better than watching a South Park movie because you were interacting and the story was just so big that you could tell they took a lot of time on it. And it was just like watching a bunch of South Park episodes put together.
Yeah, my only complaint really with it was they used a lot of repeated jokes.
Yeah, they hit every single in-joke they could ever possibly want to hit.
After a while, like a couple were fine, and then like 3 hours into the game, you're like, 3 hours repeatedly getting these in-jokes. You're like, come on.
Yeah, but if you play it in like 45-minute to an hour chunks, you can then go back and watch rewatch the episode that the joke was in or whatever. Like my brother, he came into town for like a week or two, and we would both play it like for half an hour across the room from each other. Just out of the day, we'd take 30 minutes out of the day and do it, and then you could hear us laughing or whatever, and then we'd go watch some South Park, and then we'd go out and do other stuff, and it was pretty fun.
My favorite part of the game is when you go up to Canada.
Yeah, it went like 16-bit, the music went 16-bit, everybody's head was flappy. Great.
It was a good game. I've been playing just a bunch of games lately, mostly Fistful of Frags still. Watch Dogs comes out on Tuesday, which we're going to talk a little bit about.
I'm very much looking forward to Watch Dogs. Now, anyway, so continue.
Have you played Luftrausers?
Yes. And we actually have a review of Luftrausers on the site that I wrote. It's a very good game.
I think the games I'm waiting for are like Broforce, and I've been trying to get into the Arcade beta alpha thing.
I've been trying to get into that as well, but
I don't want to pay $150.
No,
they can get out of here with that.
I already paid too much money for pre-order games already.
Yeah, we've had this discussion on Jabber specifically about pre-order culture and how you can't really make informed decisions because there's just so much hype that you're like, man, I want to get that one thing, so I got to pre-order it. No, I'm not doing that anymore.
I don't know. Arcade just looks like a good game, so.
It looks like it's really fun because there's a whole piracy mechanic literally built into it. You can get on a ship, you can kill other ships, you can be a pirate. You can also accost people trying to carry parts down the road or whatever and kill them and take their shit.
And then you can end up in jail where you have to escape jail like Prison Break. It's fucking.
If there's a bounty hunter there, they can pick you up and take you to jail, and you got to go through a trial and all this random ass shit. It's hilarious.
So there's actually a big. I talked with the Arcade guys at E3 last year, and there's actually it even has the sex system where there's the NPC kingdoms, and then there's basically.
Oh, I thought you said sex system, not sex system.
Yes,
I was like, what?
Yes, exactly.
Why would they put what?
A Japanese dating sim? What?
Koreans? What?
But anyway, so you have the NPC run kingdoms, which is where you start, and then it goes into the Piracy Sea, which is basically low sec, but there wasn't any. The way they made it sound.
Oh yeah, there's the player only island. Like it's all players. There's no NPCs on this one island, and that's null sec.
It's actually a continent, and then they expand it, and they expand it as they need to as players join the game, and they can run their own kingdoms and build up towns and stuff. Very Star Wars Galaxies or Age of Conan. If you guys have ever tried that, They mostly just talked about it. They didn't really show it. They showed off some of the ship combat, which was pretty interesting, but they didn't show off any of the null stuff, which is unfortunate. But it's actually funny because if you become a pirate, you're actually you are forced to permanently be a pirate whenever you go to any place where there are cops and stuff, you can't. Like, they just attack you, they throw you in jail.
It's the sex status system.
Except it's permanent. You can't...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, once you've become a pirate, you can't revert back to a normal person.
I'm fine with that.
And they actually have, like, they have a little pirate enclave set up for the people that choose to be, like, the low-sec privateers and running around murdering people and stuff, so... It definitely, what I saw at E3 didn't particularly impress, but it's definitely of interest, so...
It's definitely on our radar as far as TMC games go, because it's a sandbox game, but it's like a sandbox game.
It's very similar. It has a lot of similar aspects to Eve, other than it's a fantasy. Like, it goes so far as... basically. I heard a few of my space buddies were playing it together, and they figured out that you could take 4 guys and suicide bomb people that were trying to carry parts to their ship. And so they would go in, blow up, steal the packs. They'd come back to life, steal the packs, and go do it. Then somebody who was a bounty hunter started following them around, and they had to go on trial and all that crazy shit.
Yeah, I like the fact that they had this game come out like a year or 2 ago in Korea, which is where it was originally from. Then it came out in Japan. Now it's out in beta in Russia, but it's in alpha in North America and Europe. It's a game I really want to get into. I've been hearing about this game for like 2 years, and it's a game that's definitely been on my radar. So
I've been watching streams, and I don't really see... This isn't one of those games that you can just play solo. You're very much going to have to play it with people.
Yeah, it's basically a fantasy version of Eve, which is a pretty decent description to it. I mean, obviously there's like various differences. The developer said it's more of a theme park game rather than a sandbox, but they're saying there's a lot of sandbox elements.
Yeah, I could see where there's whole areas of the game that are just... You never interact. You don't have to interact as far as like PvP goes.
Yeah, it seems to be more like HiSec is the theme park section where or the Inner Kingdoms is where the theme park section is, and when you go to the low and nullsec regions, you start to get really into the sandbox gameplay, and I like that. What I also like is you can dance while you move.
A very important feature.
So like most third-person MMO games, when you hit the /dance emote, you can't move around, whereas in this, you can. And you can make your mount dance around. At least that's what I saw in a Yogscast video from a couple years ago. They were on, like...
This opens up a big possibility for line dancing.
It's definitely an interesting-looking game. I have a bunch of reservations about it, but it's a game that we're keeping an eye on for TMC, so...
So then, also talking about games that are in beta or early stages, War Thunder is... just now entering the Ground Forces beta, which came out about a week or 2 ago. So far, I've heard a lot of good things out of it from people who hadn't played in the closed beta. I've also heard some people a little disappointed by like certain stats, or it's a little bit too realistic. It's an interesting situation where it's a game that's very, very simulator based,
like Arma.
Yeah, but it's not just like Arma. Like, you had to hit specific points on the tanks to, like, blow up the ammo racks or whatever. So, like, there's actually, like, you had to actually be precise with what you're shooting at. You can't just shoot at them and expect them to blow up.
So there's, like, physics to it. You have to actually have good shot placement, otherwise it's just going to bounce off of, like, real armor.
Yeah, basically. And a lot of people who are used to games that don't do that aren't happy. But I think that's just more so they're not used to it and they're complaining because they have to learn something new.
Yeah, so I've actually been playing a lot of Ground Forces recently. It definitely has some major issues. For example, the camo system is probably the only thing that World of Tanks does right. In comparison to War Thunder. War Thunder has no camo system, so if you just flip off all the foliage in the rendering options, it actually gives you a distinct advantage in like acquiring targets and spotting them.
That's a bit try-hardy.
And then on top of that, there's no stuff like wet ammo racks and things like that. So right now in Tier 1 is actually a lot of fun. I very much recommend.
Yeah, the low tiers have always, in like these type of games, have always been entertaining because it's just, hey, I have a really cheap thing, let's just fuck around and do it.
Yeah, and because everything is so like low powered, you often end up in just basically these huge like brawls where everybody's just shooting point blank into each other's faces. Once you hit Tier 2, though, you start hitting both better players who have memorized exactly where the ammo racks are on the tanks and can hit it with a single heat shell and one-shot you constantly. And in general, like, tanks have less armor and more firepower, so it's a lot more quicker. Like, it's a lot faster paced of a round. And that so far has been my major complaint, is kind of the game really needs that planes integration to sort of fight off the players that all just pad their KD ratios by sitting in the back and sniping and hitting ammo racks with their guns. So, you know, if the planes come in, they're like, wait, you can't just sit around in your tank. You actually have to, like, advance to the objective and actually sort of play instead of just, like, being a complete hindrance to your team by sitting in the back and just like, yeah, I'm going to shoot my little 75mm cannon over a kilometer. It's like, nah.
Yeah. Well, I think the planes integration is going to come in time. It's just obviously War Thunder devs, Gaijin Entertainment really want to make sure it works properly. You still have it in the form of some AI planes. You can do planes in custom matches, so you can do team versus teams, like, you know, ahead of time, and they can actually get into planes. Specifics I'm not too sure on because I didn't really try it out too much, but yeah, the game's still got a ways to go.
They definitely do.
Right now
it's just got some balance issues primarily, and like making sure that they can craft an experience that is a fun sort of mobile warfare instead of right now where it's everybody moves up to the hill that's closest to the point, and then like half the team fires down on it while people that are actually invested in winning go and try and capture the point. Oh my god. So
flashbacks to PlanetSide 2 when the fucking guys get up there with mag riders and shoot into my spawn base.
Yeah.
And I try and go to the second level and it's just heat shot. I'm like, dead. But yeah, that's just, do they ever plan on having the planes and the tanks ever be in the same match together?
That's going to be, that's the thing right now in the custom battles, like I said, but in public matches, it's not a thing.
That's like, that part is going to be a long ways off. They're just trying to get the tank gameplay down, right?
They're trying to make sure that refine the plane gameplay, the tank gameplay, and then, you know, refine how they interact specifically. But right now you can see early stages of that. And the thing that happened was the naval combat was actually supposed to come out before the tanks, but there was issues with the naval combat integration. So they're like, all right, we're just going to speed track the tanks ahead of naval because people will have more fun with that, and we can do it a little bit easier. Well, they'll have an easier time doing the plane ground warfare integration than on the naval side and air integration.
That seems like that'll be really cool.
I would really love to see a full-on all three, like, you know, different battlefields all on the same map going on at the same time. I think that would just be a lot of fun. And there's maps that do that, so I think they're just more so working on the refinement of how do we make it better, how do we make, you know, it more enjoyable, and then they'll work on the actual integration in those game modes.
It's actually, it's definitely a thing they're working on, so it's just, we gotta wait, and I'm content to wait.
Yeah, it's a case of, it's too much excitement to just sit there and go, yeah, we're totally fine waiting. It's like, no, I really want this now, please just give me this awesome war game. And as my segues are always terrible, speaking of wargaming, Wargaming.net, parent company, or Wargaming Incorporated, something or the other, but basically Wargaming.net, guys who make World of Tanks, had their stock assets frozen by the Cyprus Stock Exchange due to not releasing the 2013 financials.
My guess is that they didn't release the financials because they made a fucking shitload of money, and they don't want to pay out as much dividends as they know they're going to have to. So, but
I think a very small percentage of the company is actually in stock rotation, though. So
most likely, and also, it'll be interesting to see how their stock and their profits do in the face of like War Thunder and such, because
the thing is. World of Tanks and War Thunder, despite on appearance having very similar mechanics and setups, are drastically different. War Thunder seems to be catering more towards realistic combat sims, enthusiasts, and World of Tanks wants to be more of the fun arcadey pick-up play for like 10 minutes and, that's it, type of gameplay. At least that's how it comes across to me. And I'm not playing these games like as much as some of my friends or people in other groups I'm in. But
There's only 2 tank games that I've ever played: PlanetSide 2, and that one old Linux game that you play that's the little wireframes that you shoot tanks with. And the Wii one with that
what
one.
What was it? Battle Tanks? Battle something.
No, the little crappy one from the Wii, the very first Wii minigames CD that you get, and you have these little toy tanks, and you're trying to blow them up through the little obstacle course. Those are the 3 tank games that I've played.
So I actually think that War Thunder is kind of poised to directly take on World of Tanks, just because the arcade experience in playing War Thunder, having played both World of Tanks and War Thunder and it's very similar too.
People want something different. They've been playing World of Tanks forever, right? They want to try something different that seems more realistic, because there's these guys that always wanted to drive around a tank that are never going to, but they can do it in that game.
It's not just that; it's also like it's so much more enjoyable in War Thunder to, like, for example, to fly your plane and when you die, it's because like your wing ripped off, right? I really love watching my plane spiral out of control and crash into a mountain because somebody blew off my wing. Like, I feel good losing at War Thunder, which is weird because, like my tank explodes or my airplane crashes, like, realistically, but in the world of games, it's like, oh, my hit point pool was depleted and my thing caught on fire and I died. So
basically, you like to eat shit in style.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that appeals to people because the arcade mode of War Thunder is very similar to the arcade mode in terms of, like, damage models and stuff as the World of games, but they happen to have it, like, a more realistic way of displaying the damage done to tanks and planes and stuff, and I think people really enjoy that. So
what does a stock freezing mean for wargaming for day-to-day operations?
It basically means that, like, a certain percentage of their company just can't be traded in stocks. I'm not an exact like.
Does that affect them day-to-day money-wise?
A little, but I don't think that much because it's the very small percentage of the company. I mean, it may affect, like, hey, we can't do X, like, one thing because we don't have enough money coming in, but our owners have, like, the overwhelming control of the company in terms of stock, so.
Does that open them up to any kinds of crazy audits from their exchange oversight for that country?
That's something you would have to actually ask a stockbroker or someone who's better at financials.
I figured somebody wrote an article about it. They might know, but...
What I understand, it's not really affecting the company all too much. It's just they need to release their financials.
They probably needed like another week to do it, and they didn't get it done on time. All right.
But they're also, I mean, it's wargaming. They're weird, and they do their own thing at their own pace. And I think it's just a case of they let their personality get in the way of their business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not going to impact their day-to-day operations. They're still going to make a bunch of money off of people buying tanks and gold and shit. But it does affect their investments, because investments are primarily investors buying securities, and if their securities are frozen, investors can't buy securities, which means they can't get funding for projects out. They have to rely on their own internal revenue for funding these projects instead of being able to get a bunch of funding from outside investors and stuff. It definitely hurts the company, but if they release their financials, it'll clear up easy and they'll just move on. So, yeah.
It's nothing really to get too worried about if you're a big World of Tanks fan. It's not going to kill the company, like, overnight.
Man, if only they'd have done Kickstarter.
Man, if only. So moving on from kind of video games to actual stuff related to video games. Allegedly, YouTube owners of probably the only good web video service are opting or deciding, supposedly according to a report on Variety, Deadwood Hollywood, stuff like that, or Deadline Hollywood, whatever those sites are, to buy Twitch.tv, which is a arguably only good web streaming service for video games, although stuff like Hitbox is just now coming out, and
Hitbox looks good.
Hitbox looks good. For those who don't know, Hitbox is basically the same code as Own 3D or Owned. I always called it Own 3D because I thought the name of the site was really stupid. but it's also under a new business management system. It's just a very similar code and setup. And I've been using it. I like it comparatively. The one good thing that Hitbox has going for it, though, is that it has a very small delay window. It has like less than 15 seconds, whereas Twitch has like on average 30 plus up to like 90 seconds. And that's like mandatory. You can't change it. Hitbox has like less than 15. But yeah, YouTube's supposedly going to buy them. And a lot of people are concerned about that because YouTube has really odd content ID policies. And since I'm the guy who's in charge of all the TMC YouTube videos, I get to deal with YouTube and deal with their policies. And it's really terrible at times.
This kind of concerns me a little bit because every once in a while I do stream. I do like in the concept that maybe Google, YouTube, since they're subsidiary of Google, will adapt some of the technology and allow me to use OBS to stream directly to YouTube. That might be cool, but I don't want Twitch to go away in any fashion because I use it, and I can sit there and browse various game streams. That's how I watch Arcade without being in the office, seeing that it might be fun, seeing how people play together. And I also grief and stream snipe, or have people stream snipe when I can't do it, and I don't want that to get any harder.
Yeah, I think the one thing a lot of people are more so concerned with, obviously, is Twitch. If Twitch doesn't go away, is hey, this guy streams a lot, and he actually plays copyrighted music. Like, he'll play whatever music, but he's not advertising. He's not charging money. YouTube may just go, like, no, you're not allowed to do that ever again. And, it's like, it kind of ruins the quality, but I understand from a business standpoint in terms of protecting their company from IP lawsuits and stuff like that they have to stop that sort of behavior. But Content ID right now on YouTube is really bad. It's poorly implemented. It's poorly managed, because, like, dealing with YouTube's customer support and people on the back end, like, hey, why have you frozen the monetization on this video? Oh, it's because you didn't provide an actual evidence. I sent you the evidence like 2 weeks ago. Why have you not responded saying that wasn't quality enough? Well, it's not on our end.
Yeah, they also have automated algorithms that will check videos for copyrighted material that's already been preloaded. So they'll just rip out the sound or cut your video and say it's infringing copyright. So
there's also the situation at times where who was it? Total Biscuit had that same issue where he put up a really bad game review. Like, he gave a game a really bad review, and the game developer who had signed off on him monetizing it did a content or copyright strike against the YouTube channel that Total Biscuit uses, and
for the actual game content.
Yeah, for the actual game content, and it was just like, you just gamed the system, and YouTube was totally cool with it. What the fuck?
That was almost a game changer. That became a big deal. A lot of YouTubers started talking about, like, Husky and those dudes, because they were concerned that they would be able to just... it also happened with some platform games where they could just take off entire game... since they usually do break it up in a series, they could yank down a whole series from a game that they spent hours crafting and walking through and talking, and that's they're making content that people want to watch, and these guys can just go, never mind, and then pull it all down.
Yeah, the game in particular you're referencing is Day One Gary's Incident, just in case you didn't remember. And yeah, it started a big thing among these content creators about censorship and developers using the Content ID tool to censor people, to use it to
only show positive reviews and all that fun stuff. And it's like, there's laws in the U.S. that company, or the country that Google is based out of, that prohibit Google from doing that on some level, at least from what I understand. I'm not aware, but I would assume freedom of the press still applies to fucking YouTube.
YouTube is actually very lenient in its counterclaim stuff. It's just really annoying, and it basically kills the video unless you can somehow like jumpstart the video again. Because I had a content ID claim on one of my videos once, and it was like right after it started blowing up, and it took me months to get the content ID the copyright thing cleared for my account. And then once I did, I actually looked out, and the guy that was in the video that I originally made sort of tweeted about it again, because he was the one who kind of got it to blow up in the first place. And it basically jump-started the video. But yeah, getting a content strike on your video is a death knell for that particular video. It just...
And it can also kill your channel if you get 3 of those.
So that's how it loops back to Twitch, right? Because you can export videos off on a YouTube. But let's say, like Hendrick said, what if you are playing some stupid streaming radio stations like House All the Time and Electro or whatever the hell it is, and you're playing video games and talking? If somebody comes along to like Soda Poppin', that idiot kid that plays, WoW still or whatever, and he's got pink hair, and they nail him, or who's the other guy, the Swedish dude who everybody loves? I can't remember. Fucking
PewDiePie?
Yeah, that guy. I think he streams too. What if somebody nails him and boom, his channel's gone on Twitch? That sucks. Or it's suspended for days until they look into it and figure it out. Like, right now, Twitch just sends you an email and says, hey, don't be an idiot. Yeah. But with YouTube, it's so much more proactive in how they harm the content creator. And so we have lots of content creators in Eve, and a lot of them will play streams and not talk and just show them flying around space, which is probably the worst kind of stream ever, and which is why they should be stream sniped. But, if you have somebody who's interactive and they have music in the background, that's a thing. That could kill streams, especially with how vindictive Eve players are.
Yeah, and like the whole thing with who's it, Mad Annie? He got in like a lot of hot water. Yeah, he got in a lot of hot water because he was playing copyrighted music and he was trying to monetize off of it. And a lot of Eve players like, you can't do this by IP law. What the fuck are you doing? He's like, well, no, I can do it because blank and blank.
And then people fucked him.
And people tried to fuck him, and that wasn't a pretty sight. And you could do that and YouTube's really silly. Who was it? There's a YouTube channel called Seashells. 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 Holy
that
cow.
One.
Or Tortoise on Tour on Twitter, if you want that. Who did a stream off his Hitbox channel where he and a couple other people basically mocked a really low budget, not so great indie game, and he got a content ID or copyright strike against him, and he had a channel shut down.
Wow.
And because the guy who made the game got like offended, and he had sent like harassing emails and stuff, and they had gone back and forth or some shit like that. And yeah, it was like YouTube just allowed this guy to game the system and hurt a content creator just out of like pettiness.
They're just so big that I don't think they'll care enough about that whole... Where Twitch is very hands-on with their community as far as that's concerned. They will promote people based on a certain amount of sustained views and things like that. They engage whenever people are doing big live events. You can contact them. They will help you. They will move your stream to... they'll give you more...
page or something like that.
Yeah, they'll give you the front page. They'll give you access to more bandwidth. They can help you out if you are... Like whenever... Capcom does the Street Fighter Evo semifinals and finals, they get big assistance. Like, I don't think YouTube gives enough of a shit about that. They've tried to do their own live events with concerts and shit, but it's terrible. And so they need Twitch, and it makes sense for them to buy them. It just... There's a lot of people are worried about what happens next.
I really hope that the Twitch guys like Gunrun and some of the other admins who are really interactive with the community stick around. Like, I was on one of Nick Fuzzy's streams for a battle. I think it was the Darius fight he was streaming. You saw a couple of like Twitch admins in the chat channel talking and like helping, because they're like, hey, this is another big E fight. Let's try to like make sure that this stream stays alive and
right, so it doesn't die, which many have in the past, right?
And you're like, damn, like you actually care about this. Like you understand, like this is bringing you views to your site, which is giving your site more exposure and more ad hits and all that fun stuff. And you're making money off Nick Fuzzy keeping that stream going.
Yeah,
so, I want that stream to
Nick Fuzzy's the guy I'm worried about because he does remixes. He does live remixes, and it's technically original content. And I don't think since they're remixes, they won't get nailed by the content IDs. But you never know. It's YouTube. You might go, oh, fuck that. Bam. That just hit, a top 40 song just went through our little algorithm and bam, we're going to shut you down for a little while. During a massive fight in Eve, that would be devastating.
During the Trouble air horn song, if he's playing that in like the fucking match.
Yeah, like, what about that?
No.
Or,
well, you don't get to see
Wrecking
what
Horn,
happens.
or whatever the fuck. Any one of his great remixes.
Like, goddamn.
Yeah, the other thing is, I just want to talk about just brief positivity here real quick with this thing. What I'm hoping YouTube does here is with the buyout, they basically let Twitch keep their own staff and autonomy, basically.
And adapt the technology to YouTube. That would be great.
Implement integration a little better, and more importantly, use Google's infrastructure that they're building up with this fiber network shit, and use that to improve Twitch's bandwidth, so that way it sort of returns to the golden days of when there was zero
a delay less than
when you had
less than 10-second delay.
When you had a delay that was less than 5 seconds, when you had it was basically instant, and I remember that was awesome, and I'm really hoping that I'm worried about all the DMC stuff the DMCA stuff with Twitch, but I'm also hoping that YouTube uses their infrastructure to improve Twitch infrastructure so that Twitch can, return to those days, because I miss them a lot.
I'm like Fox Mulder from X-Files. I want to believe. So if they can, I'm going to remain positive, but these are just concerns that the whole community is voicing. So, people are worried, but there could be a lot of great that comes out of this. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, it's like the Oculus buyout or Facebook buying out Oculus, It's one of those things where you're like, this on paper...
There's a lot of naysayers, yeah.
There's a lot of naysayers, and there's a lot of wrong that could happen in this situation. But there's also a lot of good, and the only way we can see what happens is we have to be patient, and it's really hard to be patient, because you're like, I like Twitch, I enjoy Twitch, I like watching Twitch personally for background sounds. If all the guys I like watching on Twitch for background sounds disappear, I'm not going to use Twitch anymore. I'm going to go to wherever they're at.
Can I watch Twitch on my Oculus Rift when we do that?
I want to. Speaking of Twitch, so since Eve has that built-in integration to Twitch now, as of Rubicon 1.1, or it came out with Rubicon something, I kind of hope that at least CCP takes some effort to make integration better, in the sense that I can add an overlay or mask out where I am, what system. Because, like you said, stream sniping's fun, and I love doing it. I've done it a couple times. It's hilarious, but it's also if I'm going to stream and you're going to build this tool in the game to stream, let's make it so I actually get benefits out of it. Put a ship model
over it, or
let's make it so I actually get some benefits out of the stream.
Yeah, because you can only open so many note windows to cover shit, and it would be great if they gave us some other resolutions as well, because the ones they give you suck dick for really big monitors. Sorry, guys, it's true. I can't get my 2440 by whatever the hell I have. Or what's that stupid big resolution for 27-inch monitors?
I use 1920 1080.
I can't remember what it is, but it's the one for my 27-inch monitor, and it doesn't work on that. Plus, Twitch can't handle that anyway for whatever reason. So I always have to make the screen smaller. But I like it. I just would rather use OBS because I have so much more control of the stream, and it's just a better tool. And it's
yeah, and OBS is it's a nice tool, and I use it a lot. I used to use XSplit, and I switched over to OBS because OBS is just better for me overall.
Do you know if that's going to ever work with Hotbox, or are we getting too far?
Hitbox is already integrated with OBS. I know that.
Sweet. Oh, sweet.
It's already integrated, and you can use it on a whole bunch of other sites. I actually use it sometimes for local recording only, if I need an overlay.
I use it for that too.
I mean, I don't. I've tried doing some things like a couple months ago, I did the the 1 hour of Jita traffic video that I condensed into 3 minutes. I tried doing a 24-hour span, and OBS crashed after that. After I clicked stop streaming, it just crashed because there was so much information it had to compile, because it had non-stop streaming for 24 hours of Jita, and I lost all that footage. And I was like, God. That sucks.
You have to break it up in 2-hour blocks, otherwise it'll crap itself.
Yeah, the one idea someone had suggested was I set up a macro in a program where I take a screenshot every 30 seconds and then kind of condense all that so it's an animated. So like one frame is each screenshot.
That'd be a ridiculous GIF.
It'd be ridiculous, but I would love to get a 24-hour lapse of Jita because I personally can't do it, but I want tools that let me do that. And OBS right now is the best tool that I know of.
It's a very good tool. We're getting kind of off topic here, so I'm going to direct us to talk about, to switch from Twitch, get it, to Titanfall and the...
You were really bad at segues, like you're worse than I am.
Whatever! Titanfall. They removed CTF and then they re-added it. So,
and they permanently removed Pilot Hunter only play mode.
Man, that was a fun play mode.
I did not like Pilot Hunter at all. I never liked it.
Well, Mendoza would stream it, and he would always get to like the last 2 or 3, and it was just pretty hilarious to watch it come down to Mendoza the Great, which if you've ever interacted with, it kind of blows your mind that he's a clutch guy in your team on a game. But he's so much fun to play with sometimes. Sometimes he's just really over the top. So capture the flag is kind of one of those things that you have in every FPS almost these days, and that's a fun mechanic, you know.
I love CTF games. I always remember like in middle school playing capture the flag. That was like my favorite thing to do in PE. So I'd love to play it more in like games like Titanfall and stuff.
If they'd have told people that they were going to remove it temporarily to rework the mechanics, I think people would have been more responsive, but they just pulled it down.
Well, it wasn't just to rework the mechanics. It was they did a patch to fix the mechanics. So like originally you could take the flag and then get into your Titan. They patched it so you can only take the flag and you can't get into your Titan. So once you have the flag, you are basically a squishy little human running around the map and everyone else has to kill you, which, is like a nice little, holy shit, I don't want to die. And they then said, well, there's long wait queues and less than 1% of the gaming population is using the public playlist for Capture the Flag only matches. So yeah, we'll just take it out. And they didn't tell anyone that they were going to do that. They just did it.
It was a poor move. Like that's a good example of why you have some kind of focus group or CSM type group. Even though that's not a game where you would need it, but that's why CCP has a group like that. So developers don't do ass shit without communicating on the forums first or whatever. And so they just yanked it and everybody was like, you fuck.
Yeah. But at least they put it back in and they said, we're going to be fixing it. We're going to be cleaning things up. And I do like their idea of we want to make the public playlist rotations or match rotations at least dynamic enough every couple weeks or so that gameplay in public matches doesn't stagnate. But, I mean, public matches are always going to be popular. People want to play public matches. I like playing man houses, but, public matches are still a thing. It's not going to die out anytime soon.
Sometimes you just want to log in and play and not think about it and just, like, randomly queue for something.
Yeah, there's also, like, the general gaming community when it comes to first-person shooters generally drifts towards team deathmatch. Team deathmatch and domination. Yeah, attrition and hard... Well, Pilot Hunter technically, I guess, is the true team deathmatch, but attrition was basically the team deathmatch, and that's what everybody... Because it's the first mode listed on the thing and all that stuff. And so you actually see, like, it's only people that are really interested in sort of classic-style shooters that end up drifting towards CTF regularly. And with Respawn, they pulled out... They actually put out the patch for CTF, like a few days before they actually pulled the CTF playlist. And the reason why they put the playlist wasn't because they reworked it. It's because so many people bitched at them. They were like, look, CTF was like the best mode, and we only played it exclusively because that's the only mode I played. And
yeah, I only play that. I like playing that only on public matches if I'm not with the team. Just because it's a fun mode. I like CTF. CTF is it's fun. It's an easy objective to understand, and it's an easy game system.
Say everybody here has played Team Fortress 2, where you sit there and run around, and one of the big game modes is Capture the Flag. And people, I mean, that's just the thing that people love. So if you take that, if that's a feature and people buy the game thinking, hey, I'll be able to play this, and then you take it away and you don't announce any kind of plan for getting it back online or, whatever, people are going to be upset.
Yeah, what they had done was they took it out of public matches, like, but you can still play it in custom matches. And you're like, man, it's a good public match game. Like, why are you, or game mode, like, why are you No, like, put it back in, please.
Already gotten used to it, you know. The game hasn't been out that long, but people are like, "Hey, this is fun," and then you're like, "Nah, it's not that fun, guys." And you're like, "Hey, fuck you, I want to do that."
So this is actually this whole actually ties into the Infinity Ward and now Respawn Entertainment mindset, where they have to perfectly control your experience, and that means no dedicated servers. They talk.
Well, Respawn said they were going to put in dedicated servers.
No, they're not putting in dedicated.
They did that with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, and Modern Warfare. They've done it since Modern Warfare 2. So
it was the stupidest shit where you couldn't have dedicated. Everybody was mad about that. You had to hack shit to run your own custom server.
Yeah, so like it actually ties into this sort of they don't understand PC community. For some reason they moved their entire mindset moved over from PC to console community, and the peer-to-peer matchmaking and stuff that you see in games like Titanfall and so on are perfect for console communities where running a server and everything it's a fucking pain in the ass, like getting all that stuff. You don't want to navigate a server browser with a fucking controller. It's terrible, right? But like on PC, where a lot of people tend to stick with games for a really long time if they have the tools to support that, and they build communities, right? Like, I have super fond memories of playing on specific servers in Modern Warfare 1. Like, I played on one...
Or clan matches. That's how you would get into a clan. You would play on their server a bunch and, you know, hang out with those dudes, and then they were like, "Hey, man, you want to join our clan? You know, you aren't that bad. You're fun to play with. You know, we got voice server," and you're like, "Fuck yeah." So that's where that came from. And they just pretty much killed that. The guys would have to know each other already from already being in a clan. Then they would add each other to their buddy list, and then they would all join, you know, lobbies together. And it's hard to, like, get, because everybody you play with after that point is random. So it's hard to have clan matches, and it's hard to build those communities. And they just sort of shit all over that. And they don't understand it at all because they're antisocial nerds.
I don't know about that. So I actually think it's a bit of intellectual dishonesty on their part. They classify it as, we want to build a great experience for people to jump in and play, right? But there are games that have dedicated servers and mods that have matchmaking and have had matchmaking for a really long time. The Battlefield series in particular has had both dedicated servers and mods and quick match, like just a matchmaking thing to find a server with people since I think Battlefield 2, which was like what, 2004.
But now GameSpy is gone. So GameSpy is gone, and that's what they would use for game browsers. Like
well, no, I mean they're fine. Yeah, they're fine now. They got Game Ranger, and EA kept those servers alive. So EA stepped in and said people still play Battlefield 1942 and Battlefield 2 and Bad Company 2 and stuff. So we're going to keep those servers up. But the point being, you don't have to. I think that the reason why that they refuse to do dedicated servers and allow modding support and stuff is because they want to sell you a game and they want to sell you a community, right? So you play Titanfall, and then Titanfall 2 comes out, right? You have to get Titanfall 2 because people are going to move from Titanfall to Titanfall 2. You see it with Call of Duty ever since Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, so they would have two studios juggling the release schedule. So every whatever, they would have a new Call of Duty that you had to buy, right? I get what you're saying.
Yeah, not just that, but like it's the whole iterative process where like you have new games come out and then the community shifts from the old game to the new game because new games are better, right? And so instead of having these communities and having sales and people that just adore games for a really long time, like you do with classic first-person shooters like Counter-Strike and Quake and so on, you end up having a community that's kind of ephemeral, right? Like, who still plays Modern Warfare 2? Not a whole lot of people, right? Most people play the latest three. Modern Warfare 3, Blobs 2, and Ghosts. Yeah, and actually not a whole lot of people play Ghosts compared to Blobs 2 and Modern Warfare 3 for an obvious reason. But I really think that it's there because they want to sell you games. It's a very consumer-driven mindset, and unfortunately, it comes at the expense of building a cohesive community. And you see it with like all these kids that don't understand like being polite and like a good sportsmanship because they're only playing with you for like one match. They can just they don't
Right.
have to deal with you being on that server all the time, right?
You can't ban them from your. So the cool thing about dedicated servers is you could just ban shitheels like that, and you could control your community, and you could have these little micro, like I said, clan servers and stuff like that, where it was public and people could come play, and like after Modern Warfare 2, I didn't give a shit about Call of Duty anymore, and I started playing Battlefield 2. And the expansion for that, and then I played Battlefield 3 and the expansion for that, and I haven't really gone back to any of those FPSs since. Like I started playing PlanetSide 2, and because I could play with the dudes in Zulu, I had my little clan type community that I could play with.
Yeah, but
and that was fun.
Yeah, and like you said, but you only follow that community around. You don't want to stay with the game.
I'll play PlanetSide 2 either way. Like it's one of those games where I'll play it because I like the concept of it. But like you said with Titanfall, they're thinking about Titanfall 2, Titanfall 3, a release schedule where they could just move everybody onto the new active servers. I just think the dedicated server concept opened up a lot more possibilities for people to be social.
It means the game lasts forever. Like there are still people playing Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament in 1999. Over a decade beyond release. Like, they're, 15 years old?
You would be in charge of maintaining your server with, 5 different games running on it. And you guys would be like, hey, you feel like playing Team Fortress 2? Let's hop over to that. You feel like playing Titanfall 2? Whenever that comes out, let's just flip over to that. And, people could play a game for an hour or two and then switch over to another game. But they'd be playing with those same people. It's really hard to do that. You can really only do it with real-life friends or people you meet off of a community like SA or
OG Bumble or something like that.
Yeah, or something like that. Or you add the people to your friends list and then you can make games or join games with them. Steam, thankfully, has made that a lot easier with games that don't have dedicated servers. And I really like Steam and Origin. I don't know if they're going to hit it on the head ever, if people are going to care about Origin ever. But I know with Steam, it's a lot easier now to do that because you can have groups, right? But
even still, that's not that is not to me a replacement for dedicated servers. I just miss the days of finding a server that I actually really liked playing on and then clicking
that was close to you and had a low
and had people that I enjoyed and then building a community there, right? Getting to know specific people and smack talking them and enjoying it, good sportsmanship, and it builds a sense of humanity and knowing the people that you play against and stuff like that. The peer-to-peer matchmaking and stuff like that just doesn't, and there is definitely a lot of value in that, and the reasoning that they included in there were reintroducing CTF post just makes me cringe because they don't understand how communities work at all, and why in particular the Call of Duty community is so toxic, because it's very toxic. It's even more toxic than Dota, and that's saying something.
But it's one of those things where I like having the option to choose what server I want to go to and be with the community there that I choose. So games like Rust, I can choose the server I prefer. I used to play on the Gunyan server, and it's because I knew the guys who were running it were, intelligent enough to remove people who were causing problems, and I didn't have to rely on a company who may not give two shits, to do that for me. But anyway, also recently in the news was the Amazon Digital Games Mayhem sale, which is on Amazon.com. It's a video game store. A lot of really good deals going on, which I'm really excited about, and I really like. Specifically, the Rockstar Games Ultimate Collection Bundle is pretty much every good Rockstar game that's come out that's ever come out on PC since 2000 is $25 in this one bundle. And that's GTA 4, GTA Vice City, GTA San Andreas.
Is that thing still active?
Yeah, it's still active. It's GTA.
Yeah, and they're still active.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it's okay. GTA from 3 to episodes.
To GTA 4.
To
specifically
episodes. To episodes, yeah.
And then they also have LA Noire, Bully, all that. It's really good stuff on that. And there's also other bundles the Firaxis Strategy bundle.
That one is amazing. That is a really great bundle.
Yeah, it's Civ 4 and 5 complete, which means you have the basic, you have all the expansions like Gods and Kings and Brave New World, and then you also have like the XCOM game, which doesn't have Enemy Within, but it's just Enemy Unknown, which is still good on its own, but Enemy Within just expands it more, and you're paying like $30 for that, and then you pay $30 for Enemy Within, and then boom, you have $60 of really good games.
Actually, Enemy Within is $10 during the sale. It's just not in that bundle. So yeah, that out of all the bundles that we highlighted in the piece, that is the one that I encourage everybody to buy, because those 3 games are very seriously good. So,
and then speaking of games that are coming out or has stuff that's almost more recently come out, so Watch Dogs comes out on a few days after this podcast, which is being released, or actually when it's being recorded, and we're trying to get this out before it's released. But there's a torrent out available through various websites and services, which we will not go into, that basically includes a Bitcoining program to mine. And I don't really understand how Bitcoin works specifically. All I know is that it does stuff to your computer which is not what you want done if you don't want to give it permission.
Basically, it'll run your CPU or your graphics card full tilt, non-stop, and contrary to popular belief, Bitcoins do not come out of your butt. They're not butt coins. That's all I know about them.
So the way it works is it's basically like, do you guys remember that thing that the PS3 shipped with and was on a bunch of computers where it's like you can dedicate CPU cycles to solve protein sequences?
Yeah. Folding at home. No, I totally understand how Bitcoin
that's
works.
basically all
I'm just
Bitcoin is. So
I'm being facetious here.
Okay.
So like I back in the early days, I had a video card rig that would just run those, and I did it for about 3 months, cashed the fuck out, and was done with it. Washed my hands when it spiked out at 100. Now it's like going crazy, and I was done with it almost immediately because I was just like, wow, this is fucking stupid. But there are people that's their whole life right now, so good for those guys. Yeah, so this is why you don't pirate video games unless you're running them in a virtual machine that you just don't care about.
Because you might get drafted into a Bitcoin farm.
Yes, or anything. There's any number of worse things that could happen. Like, if you have a laptop, they could get what's called a rat, and they could look through your webcam and take pictures of you, or blackmail you, or all kinds of amazing shit. So,
yeah, it's one of those things where it's kind of Schadenfreude in a sense. This guy's trying to oh, I'm totally getting this game for free. Fuck, Ubisoft. Fuck, Uplay. Fuck DRM. Oh shit, my computer's now fucked. And
so we were talking about YouTube earlier. This is why you watch a Let's Play or a playthrough from somebody like, Jesse Cox or our good friend Total Biscuit, who now has cancer. Poor guy. It's full-blown cancer, by the way, and hopefully he can beat it. But Let's Plays and YouTube reviews of games exist so you can watch what the gameplay is like and figure out if you want to spend that money. You don't have to pirate the game. Games are cheap, super easy to access now. Most of the people listening are they have a stable income and can buy games. So
yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like I found it hilarious that someone did this, and if it's actually 100% real, because so far the only actual source I've seen on it is 4chan post, other than couple news sites reporting on that 4chan post. It's pretty comical, and ultimately it's a big fuck you to the guys who are trying to pirate games.
The one thing that I want to know is if all of the furry shit that the people in the game, because I've seen tons of screenshots from the pirated game, and it's like security guard, and then his mood is like curious about yiffing. It's like
that's actually in the game.
That's Photoshop. That's gotta be.
You know what? You know what? They got Blarf McTaggart's info.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They got Blarf McTaggart to. He was a consultant on Watch Dogs, and they.
That is good times right there. You guys are making good jokes.
Man. He's getting a good shout out. But so the last topic we actually have is Eve related with Dr. Io Goodmanson, or Godmanson, however you pronounce his last name. who was CCP Dr. IOG, who is basically the central bank for New Eden in some respects in the EVE game, left CCP Games for a very prominent position at a university in Iceland, where he effectively is the equivalent to like a president of a university in the U.S. or something like that.
Yep, he is the president. A rector is basically the president. Yeah, not a dean. It's important to note, but the actual president of the university. He's like the head of the board of directors of the university.
He gets a funny hat and a little staff thing.
Yeah, and considering that the guy had been working for CCP for about like 6 or 7 years, it's a pretty long time to stay with a video game company, especially in the position he had where he was basically in charge of running the online economy, or at least analyzing it. And a lot of people were curious as to how this is actually going to affect the in-game economy. I don't think it's going to affect it too much, mostly because CCP has a pretty solid team of about like 10 guys who did what Dr. IOG was doing, or at least under his supervision, and he's always in town to like talk to. So
right, yeah, I could put it in context. The island isn't very big, so he wrote about 4 to 6 study papers or position papers on the health or the existence or the concept, the different papers about a virtual economy, and he so for people that are economists that kind of want to know, or other professors at other universities would want to read, so they could sort of see how our virtual economy came from nothing and became what it was, and the various things he does to regulate, or various times he's had to touch it, and he's published that to them, and it's been on websites and such, and he was the senior professor in that department. He had full tenure, so he was also carrying a course load while doing this, and that didn't affect anything. But he's obviously not going to be able to do be the president of a university and this. So you understand that he's now in charge of that whole apparatus that is their economy education. So he could probably nudge people and be like, hey, you might want to go help out or write papers about or check this out, or maybe make that your PhD subject matter.
So one of my family members is an economist, and she actually accepts papers. Several of the sort of big papers that her students have done for their majors have been on EVE Online's economy, and it was really interesting reading them, because she pointed out something that was super interesting, that the people who derive the most educational value out of EVE Online's economy are actually to the lower middle class. The upper class, they don't really care that much about the economy, and the lower class, like the sort of just stereotypical poor person, they tend to just enjoy the game as is, and then a middle class person tries to balance stuff, but they're not really used to this sort of thing. But people in that sort of nebulous zone between the middle class and the lower class, they actually learn a lot in manipulating the EVE Online economy. And she noticed that in her papers, and it's like a really interesting sociological thing where these sorts of people derive the most educational value out of playing EVE and learning how real-life economies work, and then take that into real life, and then become just really great economists. It's really fascinating.
All the data is available.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting, because one of the things that, people always say EVE is real, right? And they usually mean it to mean like the emotions and the feelings of EVE are real, but also...
I thought it was because we all lost all the money in BTEC.
Well, that too.
Because that was real money, right?
Yeah, that was... They actually paid CCP $300,000 to get all those ships. Yeah, but more importantly...
Think how much you pay in subs.
More importantly, EVE teaches you how to deal with real people in real situations. And yeah, it is a spreadsheet simulator, right? But it pushes these sort of it's a living economy, and more than that, it's a living society, and it's because of its openness and its focus on sort of allowing people to do whatever they want within certain bounds, very wide bounds, mind. Lots of people derive actual real meaning from Eve beyond just making friends and enjoying themselves. They actually learn how to do new things through Eve, and that's really interesting. And yeah,
I learned how not to buy high and sell low in Eve, which I apply to my real life on a regular basis.
I learned that too. I also learned how to manage a team. I also learned how to work on a good team. I
also learned how to spot shitlers in my team.
Yes.
But yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah,
it's a fun hobby.
I'm looking forward to seeing what DrEyjoG does, because a lot of people were speculating whether or not he's going to like publish like a lot of really cool papers on like how the virtual economy in Eve affects, is representative of this or that, and it's all these really cool theories that he has. The only thing I'm really sad about him leaving is at FanFest every year he always challenges people to like, hey, if I can prove you wrong, you're going to buy me a beer, and he always wins. And like there's situations where he's actually lost, and he actually has to go out and buy a guest at FanFest a beer.
Yeah, there's this year a guy got him, and another one he needed a guy to answer a question, and he figured it out. He's just like one of those teachers I always wish I had. Like maybe going through business school, if I'd have had him, I'd have cared more about a different subject and gone a different way, instead of just a generic business degree. But he's just like he's kind of like, I don't want to compare him to somebody gigantic like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he's one of those types of people that makes you interested in learning about a specific subject, where he challenges you and makes you think and gives you information and just sort of leaves it open like that. And there's not a lot of people like that. So I'm pretty glad that he's in some sort of leadership position over university where he can hire and encourage other people to be like that. And that's a really good thing for Iceland. So
and also surprisingly is he didn't go to Riot Games, which was
Yeah. They wouldn't have known what to do with him, to be honest.
But yeah, so that's about it for this episode of the Water Cooler. Powers, thank you for stopping by.
No problem.
Hopefully we'll have you on again sometime down the line. We have a big list of people we want to get through. Like Darius Johnson's on our list. Try to get Grath back on to talk non-Eve stuff. Because a lot of people always like hearing him ramble about things. Try to get Nick Fuzzy at some point, because, can never use too little air horn.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one, because he doesn't actually talk. He just uses sounds.
No, he just uses, he speaks in Morse code with the air horn. Yeah.
We actually, when we were playing PlanetSide, when we were running a tank column up from a starting base, we were going up to hit somewhere else, and somebody asked him to do Morse code for something, and he actually did it, and somebody was looking it up, but they were writing down the hashes and the marks as he was doing it and translated it back.
Yeah.
Pretty good. He messed up one word, but the rest of it was dead on.
But yeah, so thanks for stopping by for this episode, and for more video game news, reviews, guides, and videos, visit thematani.com.